Spice your speeches with stories. Pepper your speeches with quotes. Stories are quite important in public speaking. And trust me, a speech without a story is a speech without spine. You need to get the audience engaged in your public speaking by adding stories. A lot of times you hear people go very technical or do data dumping and not give the kind of information needed to make good speeches. Stories are quite important. But again, in telling stories, you must tell stories well. People don't know how to tell good stories. Public speakers go ahead and belabor their audience now with the stories they are trying to tell. But here's the point we're trying to make. A story is so important. It makes the speech palatable. It allows the speech to be digestible. It enables the audience to connect, to relate. It appeals to the visuals, appeals to the feeling people. And if it has a point, at the end of the day, it also appeals to the conservative and content-rich audience. So use stories. Now, let's talk a little about the hypnotic effect of the story. Stories have a way of putting the audience into a trance, especially if the story is a personal story or an anecdote. It has a strong appeal. It has a way of putting people into their visual mode and get them to see what you're saying. So how do you tell a good story? How do you tell a good story? What are the 5 elements in public speaking that will enable you to tell a very good story? Number 1, your story must have character. What do I mean by character or characters? There is the actor or hero-villain concept that the Hollywood and Nollywood uses. In Nigeria we say actor and boss concept. There's no there's no there's no film that people do without having actor and boss. When we were kids, we used to use actor and boss, but actually it's the hero villain concept. It always works. It connects a whole lot. So when you're telling your story, even when you're speaking, use that concept to define the characters of individuals, expose them, be descriptive about them, so that people can emotionally connect with them. Let them see the individuals you're speaking about, even in your storytelling, and then they can connect before you tell the story. It always works. Nollywood has made billions of dollars using that concept. In the same vein, you can do that as a speaker. Now, you don't have to be you don't have to tell about a hero and villain outside of you. You can be the hero, and then somebody else the villain, and you can also be the villain, and somebody else is the hero. That's how it works. But make sure you use it to get and connect with the audience strongly. The hero and villain concept is very, very powerful. Like I met my daughter yesterday, and she rebuked me about not, washing my hands before I shook hands with her and all that. Now, who is the hero in this brief short story? Of course, the hero is my daughter, and I am the villain. So the hero-villain concept is powerful. The second element that facilitates effective communication is dialogue. Now, hear this and hear this well. Dialogue is important. Dialogue reveals the creativity of the speaker. It shows how good a speaker you are. Dialogue is when you have two people, the characters now, exchanging conversations in your story. Now you're standing on the podium and you're giving your speech, and then you're exchanging a conversation. So my daughter refused to shake hands with me because I didn't wash my hands. He said, "Daddy, don't you know we're in the coronavirus era? You're supposed to wash your hands." I replied to her, "Really? Okay, dear, I'm going to wash my hands." So I went across, got into where we had the shank, and then I washed my hands. What I just did now is a conversation that ensued between my daughter and I, and that's the use of dialogue. So dialogue reveals the creativity of the speaker, and guess what? Dialogue also, it also inspires the imagination of the audience. Now, I guess that as you were listening to me, you started to try to picture my little daughter and then myself. So what happens whenever you use a dialogue is that it reveals your creativity as well as inspire the imagination of the audience. Let's look at another very important concept. When you're giving a speech in public, one other element that is important in storytelling is your action. There has to be activity. There has to be drama. Oh my God, how can you give a story or make a story or tell a story and then there's no drama? There has to be drama. There has to be activity. All right, that leads to the next one, and that is suspense. The next key to effective storytelling in public speaking is suspense. There has to be an element of suspense so as to carry your audience along. And then the final element that facilitates effective communication, or rather, a final element of a good storytelling in public speaking is, watch out for it now, the point you're about to make. So don't just tell a story for a story's sake. Make sure that when you're telling that story, it leads to a particular point. And make sure that that point is very strong. So I'd like to give you an example of this thing that happened in a certain village in Imo State. I don't want to mention the name of the village, but there was this man in that village many years ago who was considered very wise. I mean, everybody considered wise. It doesn't matter, it didn't matter what happened in the environment or in the village or in the family. He would always say, oh, let us give thanks to God. You don't know if this had not happened, what would have happened. He kept saying that even if somebody died, something happened. So one particular occasion, the youths in the village got angry at the man and said, you know what, this guy is like he's a wizard. We're going to have to kill him. Let's waylay him when he goes to farm. How can he always say, let us give thanks to God? I mean, the last person that just died, he said, let us give thanks to God. We don't know if this had not happened, what would have happened. So they planned to, waylay him on the road. And while he was he actually got to farm. They said, okay, when he's coming back from the farm, going back home, we'll waylay him. Now, on his way back from the farm home, he was hit by a man who was driving a vehicle, his Jeep. The man was trying to avoid a pothole and he mistakenly hit the man. The man came up from the vehicle and lifted up this old man and said, I'm so sorry, sir. I'm really very sorry. I didn't mean to do it. Can I help you out? He said, no, don't worry. Let us give thanks to God. You don't know if this had not happened, what would have happened. The man said, I insist. So he said, okay, no problem. He got the old man's bicycle and placed it in the boot of the car or the Jeep, and the man entered. And that's how they passed the road where those youths were waiting for the old man to pass with the bicycle. They passed without the youths noticing, and they got back home. I mean, when they got back to the old man's house, the village heard that he had an accident, and people came out to, appreciate him and find out what was wrong, whether he was well. The old man, again, in his usual manner, would say, oh, let's give thanks to God. You don't know if this had not happened, what would have happened. The youths themselves had also come to see whether what was happening. He heard the man had an accident and he was at home. How could he be at home? Why didn't he pass the road? When they got there, they saw the man sitting down and giving thanks to God, telling them, let's give thanks to God. We don't know if this had not happened, what would have happened. Then the youth now said to the man, you're really a wise man. We actually plan to waylay you on the road. Now, I'll just use the story to pass across a point that we should always give thanks to God. That it doesn't matter what is happening right now, it's better what has happened. We don't know what would have happened. So in telling that story, who were the characters? The old man, the young man, the man who hit him. Who were the villains? The youths. Who was the hero? The old man. Was there dialogue? Was there drama? Was there suspense? Was there a point? There was a point. That's how to tell a good story.